The astral Voyager drifted silently through the vast expanse of space, its sleek metallic surface reflecting the distant starlight. Dr. Jackson Rise, a seasoned space explorer with a rugged demeanor and a sharp intellect, stood at the helm, his eyes scanning the array of data displayed on the ship's control panels. Beside him, Luna, his loyal Siberian husky with piercing blue eyes, lay comfortably on the floor, her ears twitching at the subtle hum of the ship's engines. Jackson had embarked on countless missions across the galaxy, but this one felt different. There was a stillness in the air, a quiet anticipation that made his instincts tingle. As he sipped his coffee, the ship's sensors suddenly picked up a faint distress signal, emanating from a derelict spaceship floating amidst the wreckage of an ancient battle. "Computer, enhance signal," Jackson commanded, his voice steady yet curious. The computer complied, amplifying the weak signal. A series of beeps and static filled the bridge before a fragmented message emerged. "Help, life support. Failing. Coordinates." Jackson's brow furrowed as he deciphered the message. Someone, or something, was in desperate need of help. He glanced at Luna, who had now risen to her feet, sensing the shift in her master's mood. "Looks like we've got a rescue mission, girl," Jackson said, his resolve firm. Guiding the astral Voyager towards the coordinates, Jackson maneuvered the ship through the asteroid belt with precision. The derelict spaceship came into view, its once majestic structure now a ghostly remnant of its former glory. Hull breaches and scorched metal told the tale of a violent past, and Jackson couldn't help but wonder what had transpired here. Docking with the derelict ship, Jackson secured his helmet and motioned for Luna to stay close. The airlock hissed open, revealing a dark, eerie interior. The flashlight on Jackson's helmet cut through the shadows, illuminating debris and the skeletal remains of the ship's crew. It was a haunting sight, one that spoke of despair and abandonment. Moving cautiously, Jackson and Luna navigated the narrow corridors, guided by the intermittent beeping of a distress signal. They reached what appeared to be the medical bay, the source of the signal. In the center of the room, surrounded by broken equipment and flickering lights, was a life support capsule. Jackson approached the capsule, wiping away the dust and grime that obscured the viewing window. Inside, a small, frail figure lay motionless. The alien girl, no older than 7 or 8 by human standards, had pale lavender skin and silver hair that shimmered even in the dim light. Her delicate features were marred by signs of malnutrition and exposure, but there was a faint, steady rise and fall of her chest. She was alive. "Luna, we need to get her out of here," Jackson murmured, his voice tinged with urgency. The capsule's control panel was still functional, albeit barely. With a few deft movements, Jackson disengaged the life support system and carefully lifted the girl into his arms. She was incredibly light, her body fragile and cold to the touch. Luna trotted close, her presence a comforting reassurance. Carrying the girl back to the astral Voyager, Jackson laid her gently on a makeshift bed in the ship's medbay. He hooked her up to the ship's medical equipment, monitoring her vital signs and administering necessary fluids and nutrients. Hours passed, and slowly, the color began to return to the girl's cheeks. As Jackson watched over her, he couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was more than a mere rescue mission. There was something extraordinary about this child, something that pulled at the very fabric of his being. Luna sensed it too, her usually restless demeanor now calm and vigilant, as if she understood the gravity of the situation. Jackson sat back, contemplating the next steps. He knew that the galaxy was vast and full of mysteries, but this girl, Arya, he decided to call her, was a mystery he was determined to unravel. Little did he know, this single act of compassion would set off a chain of events that would change his life, and perhaps the fate of the galaxy, forever. The stars outside the viewport twinkled silently, bearing witness to the beginning of an extraordinary journey. Jackson Rise, the seasoned explorer, had just taken the first step into the unknown, with Arya and Luna by his side. Chapter 2. Adjusting to New Surroundings. Jackson Rise watched the stars streak by through the observation window of the astral Voyager, the sleek metal hull humming softly with the ship's steady progress. The derelict spaceship now lay behind them, a silent witness to whatever tragedy had led it to drift lifelessly through space. In his arms, the alien girl, now named Arya, stirred slightly, her delicate features contorting as she dreamed. He carried her to the medbay, where the soft, sterile light revealed her more clearly. She was tiny, with silvery skin that shimmered under the lights, and her hair, a cascade of pale blue, framed a face that seemed both alien and heartbreakingly human. Jackson gently placed her on the medbay's examination table and began his work. Days turned into weeks as Jackson nursed Arya back to health. Her initial fear and distrust gradually gave way to curiosity and cautious acceptance. Luna, his loyal dog, proved to be an invaluable companion in this endeavor. The canine's gentle nature and unerring loyalty seemed to reassure the girl in ways that Jackson's words could not. "Hey, little one," Jackson said softly one morning, as Arya sat on the floor of the medbay, absently running her fingers through Luna's fur. "You're safe here. I'm not going to let anything happen to you." Arya's eyes, a deep, mesmerizing violet, met his for a moment before she looked away. She was still wary, but he could see the flicker of trust growing each day. Jackson named her Arya, after his late daughter, a name that felt right when he looked at her. It was as if fate had brought her to him, a second chance to protect and care for a child in a way he hadn't been able to before. The weight of his past losses lingered in his heart, but Arya's presence began to soothe those old wounds. Arya's adjustment to her new environment was a slow process. At first, she was overwhelmed by the ship's technology and the constant hum of the engines. Simple things like the automated doors or the medbay's diagnostic tools seemed to frighten her. Jackson took great care to explain everything, his voice calm and reassuring, showing her how to use the most basic functions of the ship. "It's just a scanner," he said one day, holding her hand as he guided it over a small medical device. "See, it won't hurt you." She flinched at first, but gradually began to relax, her fingers tracing the smooth contours of the device. Her progress was slow but steady, each small victory a cause for celebration. Jackson also introduced her to the stars. They would spend hours in the observation deck, with him pointing out constellations and distant planets. He told her stories of his adventures, of the wonders he had seen and the dangers he had faced. She listened, her eyes wide with wonder, her fear slowly being replaced by fascination. Luna was always by her side, a constant source of comfort. The bond between the girl and the dog grew stronger each day, their companionship evident in the way they moved together, Arya's small hand resting gently on Luna's back as they explored the ship. One night, as Jackson was preparing dinner, he heard a soft giggle. It was the first sound of joy he had heard from Arya, and it warmed his heart. He turned to see her sitting on the floor with Luna, who was lying on her back, paws in the air, as Arya scratched her belly. "That's it," Jackson said with a smile. "Luna loves belly rubs." Arya looked up at him, a shy smile playing on her lips. It was a small moment, but to Jackson, it felt like a breakthrough. Each day, she was becoming more comfortable, more at home. As weeks turned into months, Arya began to venture out of the medbay more frequently. She explored the ship's various compartments, always with Luna by her side. Jackson encouraged her curiosity, showing her the ins and outs of the astral voyager, teaching her about the ship's systems and the vastness of space beyond. Despite the progress, there were still moments of fear and hesitation. The nightmares came often, leaving Arya trembling and clutching Luna for comfort. Jackson would sit with her, offering reassurances and gentle words until she calmed down. He knew that her past held traumas he could only guess at, and he was determined to help her overcome them. One particularly challenging night, Arya woke up screaming, her eyes wide with terror. Jackson rushed to her side, gathering her into his arms as Luna whined softly, nuzzling against her. "It's okay, Arya," he whispered, rocking her gently. "You're safe. I'm here. Nothing's gonna hurt you." It took a long time for her to calm down, but eventually her breathing steadied and she fell back asleep in his arms. Jackson stayed with her, watching over her through the night, his resolve to protect her stronger than ever. Arya's presence brought a new purpose to Jackson's life. He found joy in the small moments of their daily routine, in her growing trust and the bond they were forming. The loneliness that had haunted him for so long began to fade, replaced by a sense of hope and connection. In time, Jackson began to notice the subtle changes in Aria's behavior. She started to smile more often, her laughter echoing through the ship. She grew bolder in her explorations, asking questions and showing a keen interest in everything around her. Jackson cherished these moments, grateful for the chance to be a part of her journey. One day, as they were sitting in the observation deck, Aria pointed to a distant star cluster. "What's that?" she asked, her voice soft but filled with curiosity. "That's the Pleiades," Jackson replied, smiling, "a cluster of stars also known as the Seven Sisters. It's one of my favorite sights in the night sky." Aria gazed at the stars, her eyes reflecting their light. "Yes, it is," Jackson agreed, his heart swelling with pride, "just like you." Aria looked at him, her expression thoughtful. "For what?" he asked, curious. "For everything," she said simply. Jackson felt a lump in his throat as he reached out to gently squeeze her hand. "You're welcome, Aria. I'm just glad you're here." As the days passed, Jackson and Aria settled into a comfortable rhythm. They became a family, bound together by their shared experiences and the love that grew between them. Luna, ever faithful, remained a constant presence, her loyalty unwavering. In the vastness of space, amidst the stars and the silence, Jackson found something he had long thought lost: hope, and in Aria he discovered a new reason to keep exploring, to keep searching for the wonders of the universe. Together, they faced the unknown, ready to meet whatever challenges lay ahead. For Jackson Reyes, the space explorer, and Aria, the mysterious alien girl, the journey was just beginning. And in the depths of the cosmos, under the watchful eyes of the stars, they forged a bond that would carry them through whatever came next. Chapter 3: Unveiling Powers. Jackson Reyes sat in his quarters aboard the Astral Voyager, the hum of the ship's engines a comforting constant in the background. The room was dimly lit, casting long shadows that danced across the walls. He leaned over his desk, surrounded by holographic displays and datapads, each showing complex readouts and analyses of the young alien girl he had rescued. Aria had been with him for 2 weeks now, and the initial fear in her wide, luminous eyes had given way to curiosity. She had begun to adapt to her new surroundings, thanks in no small part to Luna, his loyal dog, who had a remarkable ability to make anyone feel at home. But Jackson had noticed something extraordinary about Aria, something that defied explanation. It started with small, seemingly inconsequential events. Objects would shift slightly out of place, lights would flicker, and once Jackson found a datapad floating in midair, suspended by an invisible force. He dismissed these incidents as glitches, the byproducts of a mind overstretched by exhaustion. But deep down, he knew there was more to it. "Aria," he called softly, looking up from his desk. The girl was sitting cross-legged on the floor, her attention absorbed by Luna, who lay sprawled out beside her. At the sound of her name, she looked up. Her eyes, large and an unsettling shade of violet, met his. "Come here for a moment, please," Jackson said, trying to keep his voice gentle. He didn't want to frighten her. She rose gracefully, almost floating, and approached him with a tentative smile. Luna trotted behind her, her tail wagging lazily. Jackson activated a holographic display, showing a rotating model of Aria's DNA. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. "Aria, do you understand what this is?" he asked, pointing to the swirling strands. She tilted her head, eyes narrowing in concentration. A flicker of recognition passed over her face. She raised a hand, and to Jackson's astonishment, the holographic display responded, expanding and highlighting specific sequences. "How are you doing that?" Jackson whispered, more to himself than to her. Aria shrugged, a small smile playing on her lips. She seemed amused by his surprise. Can you do more?" he asked, standing up and gesturing towards the objects on his desk. Aria looked around, her expression thoughtful. She raised both hands this time, her fingers splayed out as if conducting an invisible orchestra. The room came alive. Datapads, tools, and even Jackson's coffee mug lifted off the surface, hovering in the air. The lights brightened, casting a surreal glow. Jackson watched, mesmerized, as Arya manipulated the objects with effortless precision, guiding them through intricate patterns. Telekinesis, Jackson murmured, awestruck. Arya's smile widened, but it was tinged with sadness. She lowered her hands, and the objects gently settled back in their places. She looked at Jackson, her eyes pleading, as if trying to convey something important. "You're special, Arya," he said softly. "But I need to understand why. I need to help you." She nodded, her expression serious. Jackson knew he had to dig deeper, to uncover the mystery of her abilities and origins. He spent the next few days running tests, analyzing every detail he could. The results were astonishing. Arya's DNA contained sequences that resonated with a unique energy signature, one that Jackson had never encountered before. One evening, while reviewing his findings, Jackson noticed something peculiar. A series of symbols embedded within Arya's genetic code, almost like a message. He worked tirelessly to decipher it, the pieces slowly falling into place. Coordinates, he realized, staring at the decoded message. It pointed to a distant star system, one that was uncharted and largely unexplored. "This must be where you're from," he said, looking at Arya, who was watching him intently. "We need to go there," he said decisively. "It's the only way to understand who you are and why you have these powers." The journey to the uncharted star system would be perilous, but Jackson knew it was the only way to find answers. As he prepared the astral Voyager for the voyage, a sense of purpose filled him. Arya's abilities were beyond anything he had ever imagined, and he was determined to uncover the truth. As they ventured into the unknown, Jackson couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. He often caught Arya gazing out into the vast expanse of space, her expression both hopeful and wary. Luna stayed close to her side, a constant source of comfort. Days turned into weeks as they traversed the galaxy, following the coordinates. The closer they got, the more intense Arya's powers seemed to become. She could now manipulate energy fields, creating protective barriers and even altering the ship's systems with a mere thought. One night, while Jackson was in the cockpit, a blinding light filled the room. He rushed to the source, finding Arya in a trance. Like State, her body surrounded by a shimmering aura. She was projecting images, scenes of a world unlike any Jackson had ever seen. He watched in awe as the images unfolded, towering structures made of crystal, beings that looked like Arya, and a sense of urgency permeating every scene. The message was clear. Arya was a beacon, a link to her home, and something was desperately wrong there. "We're almost there," Jackson said, more determined than ever. "Hold on, Arya. We'll find the answers." Chapter 4: Alien Pursuit. The young alien girl had slowly started to adapt to life aboard the astral Voyager, and her once fearful eyes now showed signs of trust and curiosity. Jackson had taken on the role of guardian with an unexpected ease, his heart softening each time Arya looked up at him with her large, luminous eyes. As Jackson reviewed the latest data from his research on Arya's abilities, a sudden alarm jolted him from his thoughts. The ship's sensors had detected an incoming vessel, and it was approaching fast. Jackson's fingers flew over the console, bringing up the ship's external cameras. His eyes widened as he saw the sleek silver craft bearing the unmistakable markings of an alien race he had only read about in ancient texts, the Alara. "Luna, stay with Arya," Jackson commanded, his voice steady but his heart racing. The dog tilted her head, understanding the urgency in his tone, and trotted over to where Arya lay. Jackson moved quickly to the docking bay, his mind racing with questions. Why were the Alara here? Had they come for Arya? And if so, what did they want with her? The Alara ship docked seamlessly with the astral Voyager, and the airlock hissed open with a sound that echoed ominously through the silent corridors. Jackson stood ready, his hand resting on the holster of his plasma gun, as a tall, graceful figure stepped through the airlock. The Alara were even more striking in person than in the holograms Jackson had seen. The leader, a woman with silver hair that shimmered like starlight and eyes the color of the deepest oceans, regarded him with a calm but intense gaze. "I am Seraphine, envoy of the Alara," she said in a voice that was both melodic and authoritative. "We come in peace, Dr. Reyes. We seek the child you have found. Jackson's grip tightened on his weapon. And why should I trust you? How do I know you don't mean her harm? Seraphine stepped forward, her hands raised in a gesture of peace. Arya is one of us. She carries within her the power to save our world from a catastrophe beyond your imagination. We have been searching for her ever since she was taken from us. Jackson's mind raced. He had suspected Arya was special, but he hadn't imagined she was the key to saving an entire civilization. And if I refuse to hand her over? Seraphine's eyes softened with a mixture of empathy and urgency. Then our world, and possibly yours, will face unimaginable destruction. Please, Dr. Rise, we need your help. We need Arya. Before Jackson could respond, the ship's alarms blared once more. The sensors had detected another vessel, but this one was not a Lara. It was a ship belonging to a hostile faction, the Draxian marauders known for their ruthless tactics and desire for power. Seraphine's face hardened. They've found us. We must protect Arya at all costs. The next moments were a blur of action. Jackson, Seraphine, and the Alara soldiers moved swiftly to secure the ship. Luna barked urgently as the sounds of laser fire and explosions echoed through the astral Voyager. The Draxian marauders were relentless. Chapter 5. Rising Tension. Jackson Rise paced the bridge of the astral Voyager, his mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. The Alara had just departed after their urgent plea for Arya, leaving him with a monumental decision. The ship's lights cast long, eerie shadows, amplifying the weight of the choice he had to make. Arya's faint, rhythmic breathing filled the silence, a fragile reminder of her presence. Luna, his loyal dog, lay by Arya's side, her eyes watching Jackson intently. The bond between the three had grown unbreakable, forged in the crucible of shared adversity and care. But now that bond was under threat, and Jackson couldn't help but feel the gnawing fear of losing Arya. "Why did it have to come to this?" he muttered, running a hand through his hair. He had sworn to protect Arya, to give her a new life, but now her destiny seemed to lie elsewhere, intertwined with a race he knew little about. A soft chime from the control panel interrupted his thoughts. The ship's a calm and soothing voice, broke the silence. "Captain Rise, the Alara ship has departed our immediate vicinity. However, I am detecting another vessel on a direct course towards us. It appears to be of an unknown origin." Jackson's heart skipped a beat. He strode over to the console, his fingers dancing across the controls. The display showed an approaching ship, its configuration unlike any he'd seen before. Sleek, angular, and menacing, it exuded an aura of hostility. "Prepare for potential engagement," Jackson ordered, his voice steady despite the rising tension. "Luna, stay close to Arya." The ship's interior lights dimmed as the astral Voyager shifted to a combat-ready state. Jackson armed the defensive systems, his mind racing through possible scenarios. Who were these newcomers? And what did they want with Arya? As the alien vessel drew closer, a crackling transmission came through, laced with static. "Attention, astral Voyager. Surrender the girl, and we will spare your lives." Jackson's jaw tightened. The demand was clear, and the threat unmistakable. He glanced at Arya, who had woken up, her large, luminous eyes filled with fear. Luna nuzzled her comfortingly, sensing her distress. "Who are you?" Jackson demanded, his voice a low growl. "And why do you want her?" The response was immediate, cold, and devoid of emotion. "We are the Etherean Syndicate. The girl possesses powers that are rightfully ours. Surrender her or face annihilation." Jackson's mind raced. The Alara had warned him of other factions that would seek Arya for their gain, but he hadn't expected them to find him so quickly. He needed to buy time, to think of a way to protect her. "I need more information," he said, stalling. "Why is she so important to you?" The voice on the other end was unyielding. "Her powers are the key to unlocking ancient technologies that will grant us dominion over the galaxy. You cannot comprehend their significance. Surrender her now." Jackson knew there was no reasoning with them. His options were dwindling, and time was running out. He activated the ship's intercom, his voice echoing through the corridors. All hands prepare for evasive maneuvers. We are under attack. The astral voyager shuddered as the Etherian ship opened fire. Jackson gripped the controls, deftly maneuvering the vessel through the onslaught. Explosions rocked the ship, but he remained focused, determined to protect Arya at all costs. "I initiate countermeasures," he commanded. "Divert power to shields and weapons." The ship's AE responded with calm efficiency, launching a barrage of defensive measures. Missiles streaked through space, colliding with the Etherian vessel and illuminating the void with fiery explosions. But the enemy ship was relentless, pressing its attack with unyielding ferocity. Jackson could feel the strain on the ship's systems. The astral voyager wasn't built for prolonged combat, and he knew they couldn't hold out forever. He needed a plan, a way to turn the tide. "I.e., scan for any weaknesses in their hull," he ordered, desperation creeping into his voice. "Scanning," the AI replied. Moments later, it reported, "Weakness detected near their primary thrusters. A direct hit could disable their propulsion systems." Jackson seized the opportunity. Prepare a precision strike. Target their thrusters. As the ship's targeting system locked onto the weak point, Jackson glanced at Arya and Luna. "Hold on tight," he said, his voice filled with determination. The astral voyager unleashed a concentrated volley of firepower, striking the Etherian ship's thrusters with pinpoint accuracy. The enemy vessel shuddered, its movements growing erratic as its propulsion systems failed. Jackson didn't wait for the dust to settle. He initiated an emergency jump, the astral voyager leaping through space to a distant sector, far from the reach of the Etherian syndicate. As the ship stabilized, Jackson let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. They were safe, for now, but the threat was far from over. Arya's eyes met his, a mix of gratitude and fear. "Will they come back?" she asked, her voice trembling. Jackson knelt beside her, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We'll be ready," he promised. "No matter what, I'll protect you." Luna barked in agreement, her tail wagging as if to reinforce Jackson's vow. Together, they would face whatever dangers lay ahead. The bond between them had only grown stronger, forged in the fires of conflict and trust. Chapter 6: The Battle for Arya. The astral voyager hummed with an ominous energy as it prepared for the impending confrontation. Dr. Jackson Rise stood on the bridge, his eyes scanning the myriad of sensors and screens, each one reflecting the tension that crackled through the ship. Luna, his loyal canine companion, sat alert by his side, sensing the gravity of the situation. Jackson's mind raced with the decision he knew he had to make: protect Arya or let the Alara take her. In the dimly lit room, the soft blue glow from the monitors cast shadows on Jackson's determined face. The Alara, an alien race with a deep, ethereal beauty and an air of ancient wisdom, had boarded the astral voyager with a solemn urgency. Their leader, Seraphine, a tall figure with luminescent skin and eyes that seemed to hold galaxies, approached Jackson. "Dr. Reyes, we need to ensure Arya's safety. She is our only hope," Seraphine said, his voice resonating with both authority and desperation. Jackson nodded, his heart heavy. "I understand, but she's just a child. We need to protect her from those who would exploit her." Seraphine placed a hand on Jackson's shoulder, his touch surprisingly warm. "We will protect her with our lives. She is more important than any one of us." A sudden alarm pierced the tense atmosphere, its shrill tone echoing through the ship. "They're here," Jackson said, his voice grim. On the main screen, the hostile faction's ships appeared, sleek and menacing, moving swiftly towards the astral voyager. "Battle stations," Jackson commanded. The ship's crew, a mix of humans and Alara, sprang into action, each one aware of the high stakes. Arya, sensing the urgency, emerged from her quarters, her large, luminous eyes wide with fear and determination. She approached Jackson, clutching a small, intricately carved pendant that glowed faintly. "Jackson, I'm scared," she whispered. He knelt down, looking into her eyes. "I know, Arya, but you're brave and we're going to protect you. Trust me." The hostile ships opened fire, and the astral voyager shuddered under the impact. Jackson and the Alara, alongside his loyal crew, returned fire. The battle was fierce, with energy blasts illuminating the dark expanse of space in a deadly dance of light and destruction. Jackson moved swiftly through the ship, coordinating defenses and ensuring Aria's safety. Luna stayed close, her instincts sharp and ready. The Alara warriors, with their advanced technology and graceful combat skills, fought valiantly against the invaders. The hostile faction, led by a ruthless commander named Varkas, sought to capture Aria and harness her powers for their own gain. Varkas, a hulking figure with piercing red eyes and a cruel smile, directed his forces with brutal efficiency. "Bring me the girl," he snarled through the comms. Seraphine and his warriors formed a protective circle around Aria, their bodies glowing with a soft, protective light. "We will not let them take you," Seraphine vowed. As the battle raged on, Aria's fear began to transform into a quiet resolve. She closed her eyes, focusing on the pendant in her hand. A strange energy began to emanate from her, enveloping her protectors and giving them strength. The tide of the battle started to turn, with the defenders pushing back against Varkas's forces. Jackson, wielding a plasma rifle, fought alongside his crew. He caught sight of Varkas, who had breached the ship's defenses and was making his way toward Aria. "Not on my watch," Jackson muttered, charging toward the enemy leader. The two clashed in a fierce hand-to-hand combat, the sound of their struggle echoing through the corridors. Jackson fought with a ferocity driven by his determination to protect Aria. Varkas, however, was relentless and powerful. Just as it seemed Jackson might be overwhelmed, Aria's energy surged through the ship. Aria, standing at the center of the conflict, raised her hands and a brilliant light burst forth. The hostile forces were thrown back, their ships disabled and their weapons rendered useless. Varkas, caught in the energy wave, was hurled against the wall, his eyes wide with shock and fear. Seraphine stepped forward, his voice ringing with authority. "Leave now and never return. You will not harm her or anyone else again." Varkas, defeated and enraged, ordered a retreat. The hostile ships disengaged and fled, disappearing into the vastness of space. The astral Voyager was battered but victorious. Breathing heavily, Jackson looked around at the aftermath of the battle. His crew and the Alara were exhausted but triumphant. He turned to Aria, who stood glowing softly, her powers now calm and controlled. "You did it, Aria. You saved us," Jackson said, pride and relief evident in his voice. Aria smiled faintly, her eyes filled with a mix of emotions. "I couldn't have done it without you and Luna." Chapter 7: Resolution. Jackson stood on the bridge of the astral Voyager, the stars shimmering through the viewport like countless fireflies caught in a celestial dance. His heart was heavy, weighed down by the impending farewell. Beside him, Aria gazed out at the stars, her large luminescent eyes filled with a mix of curiosity and sadness. Luna, ever loyal, sat quietly at Jackson's feet, sensing the tension in the air. The Alara ship hovered nearby, its sleek, organic design a stark contrast to the rugged industrial lines of the astral Voyager. Jackson had spent days wrestling with the decision to trust these aliens with Aria. Their leader, Elora Prime, had pleaded their case with a sincerity that was hard to ignore. Aria's powers were the key to saving their world from a cataclysmic event, a truth that Jackson could no longer deny. Jackson knelt beside Aria, his eyes meeting hers. "Aria," he began, his voice soft yet steady, "you have a special gift. The Alara need you to help save their world. It's a big responsibility, but I know you're strong enough to handle it." Aria's lip quivered, and she clutched Luna's fur for comfort. "Will I see you again, Jackson?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jackson's heart ached. He pulled her into a tight embrace, feeling the warmth of her small body against his. "I promise you, Aria, this isn't goodbye forever. We will see each other again." The airlock hissed as it opened, revealing Elora Prime flanked by two of her kin. Their presence was both regal and serene, their silvery skin glinting under the artificial lights of the ship. Jackson rose, his expression resolute, and walked with Aria towards them. Elora Prime extended her hand, her expression gentle and understanding. "Thank you, Jackson. Arya will be cherished and protected. Her powers are our only hope." Jackson nodded, his grip on Arya's hand tightening for a moment before he let go. "Take care of her," he said, his voice firm yet tinged with emotion. "She's more than just a key to your salvation. She's a remarkable individual." Arya stepped forward, her eyes never leaving Jackson's. As she joined Alara Prime, she turned back one last time.
"I'll miss you, Jackson. And you too, Luna."
Jackson felt a tear escape and quickly brushed it away.
"We'll miss you too, Arya."
The airlock closed with a final hiss, and Jackson felt an emptiness settle in his chest. He watched as the Alara ship gracefully maneuvered away, its form becoming a distant silhouette against the backdrop of stars. Luna whimpered softly, nudging Jackson's leg with her nose. He sighed, running a hand through Luna's fur. "Come on, girl, let's get back to work." Back on the bridge, Jackson's mind raced with memories of Arya, her laughter, her curiosity, and her incredible powers that had amazed and bewildered him. He couldn't help but feel a sense of pride mixed with a profound sense of loss. The days that followed were quiet. Jackson immersed himself in his work, charting new territories and studying cosmic phenomena, but Arya's absence was a constant reminder of the bond they had formed. He often found himself glancing at the spot where she used to sit, or expecting to hear her light footsteps following Luna's. Weeks passed, and Jackson received a transmission from the Alara. "Jackson, I wanted to let you know that Arya is doing well. She's adjusting to her new home and her powers are already making a difference. We owe you a debt of gratitude." Jackson nodded, feeling a bittersweet relief. "Thank you for keeping me informed. Tell Arya, tell her I'm proud of her." As the transmission ended, Jackson leaned back in his chair, a sense of peace washing over him. He had done the right thing. Arya was where she needed to be, making a difference in a world that desperately needed her. The stars continued their dance outside the viewport, a reminder of the vastness of the universe and the countless stories unfolding within it. Jackson knew his journey wasn't over, and neither was Arya's. Their paths would cross again, of that he was certain. For now, he had Luna by his side in the endless expanse of space to explore. And in the quiet moments, when the loneliness crept in, he held on to the promise of a future reunion where he and Arya would share their stories once more, bound by the unbreakable bond they had formed in the vastness of the cosmos. Chapter 8, Epilogue. The astral voyager drifted through the serene expanse of space, its journey continuing across the endless tapestry of stars. Jackson Rise stood at the helm, his gaze fixed on the shimmering canvas outside the viewport. The recent events played back in his mind like a vivid dream, discovering Arya, nurturing her, and ultimately making the heart-wrenching decision to let her go. Jackson's fingers absently traced the worn edges of a photo frame mounted beside the control panel. It held a picture of Arya, taken during one of their many moments together on the ship. Her luminous eyes sparkled with curiosity, a stark contrast to the initial fear and uncertainty that had clouded them. Luna sat beside him, her soft fur a comforting presence as she nuzzled his leg, sensing his contemplative mood. The ship's AI, a soft female voice with a hint of warmth, interrupted his reverie. "Jackson, incoming message from the Alara." Jackson's heart quickened. It had been months since he had last heard from them. He straightened and activated the communication console. The holographic image of an Alara emissary materialized before him, her ethereal features illuminated by the soft glow of the ship's lights. "Dr. Rise," she began, her voice melodic and soothing. A pang of emotion surged through Jackson as Arya's image replaced the emissary's. She looked different, more mature, more confident, but her eyes held the same warmth and recognition that had always endeared her to him. "Jackson!" Arya exclaimed, her voice filled with excitement. "I've missed you and Luna so much!" Jackson's throat tightened as he smiled. "We've missed you too, Arya. How are you? How are things with the Alara?" Arya's smile was radiant. "It's been incredible. I'm learning so much about my powers and my heritage. The Alara are kind and nurturing. They've become my family, just as you and Luna were." Jackson nodded, his chest swelling with pride and relief. Arya's expression grew serious. Jackson, there's something I need to tell you. The Alara have discovered more about my powers. They believe I can help bridge the gap between our worlds, bringing peace and understanding. But I couldn't have done any of this without you. Jackson's eyes glistened with unshed tears. You've always had the strength within you, Arya. I just helped you see it. They spoke for a while longer, sharing stories and laughter, until it was time to say goodbye. As the transmission ended, Jackson felt a profound sense of fulfillment. He had played a part in something much greater than himself, and Arya's journey was far from over. Later, as Jackson and Luna prepared for their next mission, he couldn't shake the feeling of hope that had taken root in his heart. The galaxy was vast and full of mysteries, but it was also a place of endless possibilities. He knew that somewhere out there, Arya was forging her path, bringing light to the darkest corners of the universe. As the astral voyager glided through the starlit void, Jackson looked forward to the adventures that lay ahead. He had found a new purpose, driven by the memory of a little alien girl who had changed his life forever. With Luna by his side and the boundless cosmos before him, Jackson Rise was ready to face whatever the future held. And so, the journey continued, not just for Jackson, but for Arya and the countless lives they had touched along the way. In the silent, shimmering expanse of space, their stories intertwined, creating a legacy of courage, love, and hope that would echo through the stars for generations to come.